The summer heat was relentless in Austin, Texas. The sun blazed overhead, casting sharp shadows on the pavement as Keanu Reeves and his friend, Ryan Carter, jogged through a quiet suburban neighborhood. The air was thick and heavy, the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer and the air feel like a furnace. Even for two men who had trained their bodies for grueling action sequences and relentless stunts, the Texas heat was merciless. Ryan wiped a bead of sweat from his forehead, exhaling sharply. "Man, I could use something cold right about now." Keanu, ever composed, gave a small smirk. As if answering their unspoken request, something caught their attention, a small wooden stand on the front lawn of a cozy little house. A bright yellow sign, hand-painted with careful strokes, read, "Fresh lemonade, $1." Behind the stand stood Maya, a young girl, no older than 11 or 12, with deep brown eyes and an expression of quiet determination. Dressed in a simple blue t-shirt and denim shorts, she was carefully arranging plastic cups, making sure everything was in perfect order. She didn't seem like just another kid trying to make a few extra dollars for candy or toys, there was something different about her. Keanu slowed his pace, nodding toward the stand. "How about we take a break?" Ryan chuckled. "Yeah, let's see if this lemonade lives up to the hype." As they approached, Maya's face lit up with enthusiasm. "Hey there! Want some fresh lemonade? Ice cold." Keanu leaned slightly against the stand, the shadow of a smile playing on his lips. "That depends," he said, crossing his arms. "How good is it?" Maya straightened her shoulders, folding her arms confidently. "Best lemonade in town. Guaranteed." Ryan raised an eyebrow, impressed by her confidence. "All right, you sold us. 2 cups, please." Maya moved with practiced ease, pouring the lemonade into 2 clear cups and handing them over. Keanu took a sip, feeling the icy liquid slide down his throat, a welcome relief against the sweltering heat. He let out a satisfied sigh, while Ryan nodded approvingly. "All right," Ryan said, setting his cup down. "How much do we owe you?" $1 per cup, so $2 total, Maya responded proudly. Ryan handed over 2 crisp dollar bills, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his expression. "It's summer. Shouldn't you be out playing with your friends instead of running a lemonade stand?" Maya's smile softened slightly. She gave a small shrug, but her eyes held something deeper. "I'm saving up for college." Keanu raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "College? That's a pretty big goal for someone your age." She nodded firmly. "Yeah. My mom works 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and I don't want her to struggle forever. If I start saving now, by the time I finish high school, I'll have a good amount set aside. I don't want to depend on loans or hope for a miracle, I want to earn it myself." Keanu and Ryan exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. This girl wasn't just selling lemonade. She was building a future. The sun was still high in the sky as Keanu and Ryan jogged away from the lemonade stand, feeling a quiet sense of admiration for Maya. It wasn't every day you met someone so young with such determination. They had no idea that, just minutes after they left, trouble was rolling in. Maya was still gripping the stack of bills, her fingers trembling slightly as she tried to process what had just happened. She glanced around, half expecting someone to tell her it was all a dream. But the money was real. The promise she had made to Keanu and Ryan was real. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. Carefully, she tucked the cash under a wooden crate beneath the stand, hoping it would be safe there. She straightened up, adjusted her sign, and prepared to keep selling. Then, the atmosphere changed. The peaceful hum of the neighborhood, the buzzing lawnmowers, the distant laughter of children, the occasional passing car, was suddenly swallowed by a deep, low rumble. It started as a faint vibration in the pavement, barely noticeable. But within seconds, it grew louder, heavier, like a storm brewing in the distance. Maya turned her head toward the street, her heartbeat quickening. 6 motorcycles rounded the corner, rolling down the road like a pack of wolves. The riders were large, imposing men clad in worn leather jackets, their arms covered in faded tattoos. Their helmets were absent, revealing hardened faces marked by years of rough living. These weren't just any bikers, they carried the air of men who took what they wanted and left destruction in their wake. The group didn't stop at first. They rolled past the stand, their eyes sweeping over Maya's setup like vultures circling above. It was enough to make her stomach twist, but she held her ground. Then, just as they reached the end of the block, the leader, a bald man with a thick beard and a jagged scar across his cheek, lifted his hand in a signal. Instantly, the entire group slowed, then made a deliberate U-turn, rolling back toward the lemonade stand before cutting their engines. The sudden silence was even heavier than the roar of their approach. The leader swung his leg over his bike and landed on the pavement with a heavy step. He cracked his neck, stretching his shoulders before slowly approaching the stand. Maya felt her hands tighten around the counter, her nails digging into the wood. The man smirked, his voice rough and edged with amusement. Well, he drawled. What do we have here? A little lemonade operation? Maya cleared her throat, pushing past the lump of fear rising in her chest. Yes, sir. $1 per cup. Would you like some? One of the bikers, a stocky man with a greasy ponytail, scoffed. $1 for sugar water? That's robbery. Laughter rippled through the group, but Maya stood firm, lifting her chin slightly. That's the price. You drink, you pay. A few of the bikers exchanged glances, surprised by her defiance. The leader smirked and took a slow step forward, resting his large hands on the counter. And what if we don't feel like paying, huh? Maya swallowed hard, but her voice didn't waver. Then you don't drink. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a lanky man with a missing front tooth reached out, grabbed a cup, and poured himself some lemonade without permission. He took a slow, exaggerated sip, then smacked his lips obnoxiously before sneering. Tastes like garbage. Without hesitation, he tilted the cup and dumped the lemonade onto the ground. The liquid seeped into the hot pavement as the other bikers burst into laughter. Maya's hands clenched into fists at her sides. You owe me $1. The leader's smirk widened. Oh yeah? And what if I don't pay? You gonna call the cops on us? Another biker grabbed a cup, drank from it, then tossed it onto the ground. I've had better. Maya's jaw tightened. That's $2. The bald leader laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. You got guts, kid, I'll give you that. Then, his gaze flicked past her toward the back of the stand, and his smirk twisted into something darker. But what do we have here? Maya's stomach dropped. One of the bikers stepped off his bike, moving toward the stand. Instinctively, she turned, following his gaze, and there it was. The stack of crisp $10,000 bills, barely hidden beneath the wooden crate. She had thought they were safe. She had been wrong. Maya's heart pounded as she saw the biker's eyes lock onto the stack of crisp bills peeking from beneath the wooden crate. She had thought she had hidden it well, but now, under the scrutiny of these men, it might as well have been glowing. A biker with a thick patchy beard let out a low whistle. Damn, kid, you making bank selling lemonade? Another biker, a wiry man with snake tattoos winding up his arms, smirked. Or maybe, he said, stepping closer, you swiped this from mommy's purse. Maya's fingers curled into fists. I didn't steal anything, she shot back, her voice firm despite the fear crawling up her spine. The bald leader, still leaning against the counter, let out a slow chuckle. Relax, he said smoothly, though there was nothing friendly in his tone. We're just curious. See, a little girl like you shouldn't be walking around with that kind of cash. People might get the wrong idea. Maya forced herself to stand tall. That's my money. I earned it. The leader tilted his head, pretending to be impressed. Oh yeah? And how'd you do that? She squared her shoulders. 2 men bought lemonade and gave me a tip. The bikers exchanged glances before bursting into laughter. What? One of them cackled. Some random guys just dropped 10 grand on lemonade. You expect us to believe that? Maya's eyes burned with frustration. I don't care what you believe, she said, her voice sharp. The leader's smirk faded. He leaned in slightly, his presence looming. Tell you what, he murmured. Since you're doing so well, how about we help you out? We'll take this off your hands and make sure it's spent properly. His hand reached toward the stack of money. Maya reacted instantly. She slammed both hands down onto the pile, gripping the cash tightly. No. The leader's expression darkened, his amusement evaporating. You don't want to do that, kid. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears, but she didn't back down. Get your hands off my money. For a moment, there was silence. The leader studied her, his jaw tightening. Then, he exhaled sharply and let out a slow chuckle. Brave, he muttered. Stupid, but brave. One of the bikers, clearly eager to escalate things, took a step forward. Maybe we ought to teach her a little lesson in respect. Maya braced herself, her mind racing for a way out. And then, a shadow fell over the stand. A deep, powerful voice rang out, cutting through the tension like a blade. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The bikers froze. Maya turned her head slightly, her breath catching in her throat. Standing just behind the bikers, their massive frames radiating an unmistakable aura of control and dominance, were Keanu Reeves and Ryan Carter. Their eyes were locked onto the group, their expressions unreadable but charged with barely restrained intensity. The bikers turned slowly, sizing up the 2 men who had just appeared. The bald leader's smirk returned, but there was something different in his eyes now, a flicker of uncertainty. Well, he mused, crossing his arms. Look what we have here. Ryan cracked his neck, then his knuckles. Yeah, he said coolly. Look what we have here. Keanu's gaze flicked briefly to the pile of money, then back to the bikers. His voice was calm, almost amused. I don't think that cash belongs to you, boys. The air thickened. Maya, still gripping her money, took a shaky breath. She wasn't alone anymore. And the real fight was about to begin. The air was thick with tension. The 6 bikers had come expecting easy intimidation, but now, standing in front of them, were 2 men they hadn't accounted for, Keanu Reeves and Ryan Carter. The bald leader eyed them with curiosity, masking the irritation brewing beneath his rough exterior. His crew, once cocky and sure of themselves, now exchanged uncertain glances. They had come to shake down a little girl, not to deal with 2 fully grown men who looked entirely too calm for the situation. Keanu stood still, his expression unreadable, but there was something in his stance, an effortless control, like a lion watching prey that hadn't yet realized it was in danger. Ryan, on the other hand, was looser, his arms crossed over his chest, a small smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. The leader finally scoffed, shaking his head. Let me guess, he said, voice dripping with mockery. You 2 are the guys who gave the kid all that cash. Ryan's smirk didn't waver. That's right. The leader let out a sharp laugh, glancing at his crew. And you think that means we're just gonna walk away? Keanu's lips barely twitched, but his voice was steady. That would be the smart thing to do. A ripple of movement passed through the bikers, their bodies shifting ever so slightly. It was subtle, but Keanu and Ryan both recognized it immediately. Years of experience, not just in Hollywood, but in real-world encounters, had taught them exactly when a fight was about to break out. The leader tilted his head, still smirking. See, the way I see it, we found a little girl sitting on a fortune, completely unprotected. And now, a couple of actors show up thinking they can scare us off." He gestured lazily toward them. "You're in our way." Ryan's fingers flexed slightly, his face still unreadable. "And you're in ours." One of the bikers, a stocky man with a thick beard, let out a short laugh. "You two really think you can take all of us?" Keanu exhaled, his expression not shifting. "I think you should really learn how to count." For a moment, silence stretched between them as the bikers processed his words. Then, without warning, the leader lunged. The moment the first punch was thrown, the calm shattered. Keanu sidestepped smoothly, moving with practiced precision. He caught the biker's wrist midair and twisted sharply, sending the man stumbling forward before delivering a lightning-fast palm strike to his chest. The biker's breath left him in a sharp gasp as he staggered backward. Ryan moved in a blur, slipping past another biker's incoming punch and countering with a brutal elbow to the ribs. The man let out a strangled noise of pain before Ryan grabbed the back of his jacket and yanked him forward, driving his knee into his stomach. The biker collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Another attacker came at Keanu, swinging wildly. Keanu leaned back just enough to let the fist pass an inch from his face, his movements eerily controlled. In the split second before the biker could recover, Keanu stepped forward, hooked his arm around the man's, and yanked, sending him spinning before planting him face-first against the wooden counter of the lemonade stand. The stand rattled from the impact. Ryan ducked under another punch, then drove his fist into a biker's side. The man grunted, stumbling sideways. Without hesitation, Ryan grabbed the man's leather vest and flipped him over his shoulder, sending him crashing to the pavement. One of the bikers, a wiry man with a snake tattoo on his neck, pulled a switchblade from his pocket, flipping it open with a sharp click. Keanu's eyes flickered to the blade, his muscles tensing. The man lunged. But Keanu moved first. His hand shot out, gripping the biker's wrist in a split-second motion. He twisted the blade out of the biker's grasp and sent it clattering to the ground. Before the man could react, Keanu slammed an open palm against his chest, knocking him off balance. Ryan was already handling another opponent. A taller, broad-shouldered biker swung a metal chain toward him. Ryan dodged, caught the chain midair, and yanked it forward. The biker stumbled, and in an instant, Ryan spun, using the momentum to slam a heavy fist into his jaw. The man crumpled to the ground, groaning. The leader, watching his men drop one by one, clenched his teeth in frustration. He took a step back, sizing up Keanu and Ryan before making his decision. With a growl of rage, he turned and lunged at Keanu. Keanu's movements were effortless. He sidestepped just enough for the leader's momentum to throw him off balance, then grabbed his jacket and used his own weight against him, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. The remaining bikers hesitated now, their bravado faltering. Ryan adjusted his stance, rolling his shoulders as he looked at the remaining few still standing. Anyone else? None of them moved. The leader pushed himself up, breathing hard. His face was red with humiliation, his body aching from the fight. He glanced at his crew, then back at Keanu and Ryan, his jaw clenched. This ain't over. Keanu tilted his head slightly. Yeah, he said. It is. For a moment, the leader looked like he wanted to argue. His pride was wounded, his authority shattered. But he knew when he was beaten. With a sharp exhale, he gestured to his crew. Get on your bikes. The remaining bikers didn't hesitate. They scrambled to their feet, some limping, others holding on to their ribs. The engines roared to life as they mounted their motorcycles, their movements shaky but hurried. The leader swung a leg over his bike, his grip on the handlebars tight. He cast one last glare toward Keanu and Ryan, his eyes burning with resentment. This ain't over, he repeated, his voice low. Keanu gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. We'll be here. Ryan smirked. "And next time, bring more guys." The leader's face darkened, but he said nothing more. With a final rev of the engine, the bikers peeled out, speeding down the street and disappearing around the corner. Silence settled over the street once more. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Keanu turned to her, his expression softening. "You okay?" She nodded, her grip on the money finally relaxing. Yeah, I think so." Ryan leaned against the counter, glancing at the remnants of the knocked-over lemonade stand. "Sorry about your stand." Maya shook her head quickly. "It's fine. I can rebuild it." Keanu smiled. "That's the right attitude." Ryan clapped his hands together. "Well, that was a good warm-up." Keanu chuckled. "Yeah. Now let's clean this up." As they began helping Maya restore the stand, the air no longer held tension. But something told them that trouble wasn't done just yet. The late afternoon sun hung low over the quiet streets of Austin, Texas, casting golden light across the pavement. The tension from the fight had faded, replaced by the rhythmic sounds of Keanu, Ryan, and Maya working together to rebuild the lemonade stand. Broken cups were cleared, the sign was straightened, and the wooden counter was set back in place. For the first time in hours, Maya felt safe. But safety is often fleeting. The moment of calm shattered with a distant but familiar sound, a deep, menacing growl of engines cutting through the neighborhood's peaceful hum. Keanu and Ryan stopped moving. Their muscles tensed instinctively as they turned toward the road. Maya's heart plummeted. She knew that sound. They were back. 6 motorcycles roared down the street, but this time, something was different. The bikers weren't just rolling in to intimidate. They were coming fast, aggressive, reckless, fueled by rage. Maya took a step back, gripping the counter. "What do we do?" Keanu didn't take his eyes off the approaching threat. His voice was calm, steady. "Stay behind the stand. Don't move." Ryan rolled his shoulders, a smirk playing at his lips. "Let's finish this." The motorcycles screeched to a halt in front of the lemonade stand, tires skidding against the pavement. Dust kicked up around them as the bikers swung off their seats with newfound determination. The bald leader, Vince, the bull marshal, was the first to step forward. His face was twisted in fury, his lips swollen from their last encounter, his knuckles scraped and bruised. But more than that, his pride was shattered. He spat on the ground, locking eyes with Keanu. "You think you can humiliate us and just walk away?" Keanu tilted his head slightly, his face unreadable. "I don't think. I know." Vince's hands clenched into fists. "Get them." The attack was immediate. One of the bikers rushed Ryan first, swinging a rusted chain toward his head. Ryan ducked effortlessly, catching the chain midair. In a single swift motion, he yanked it forward, pulling the biker off balance. Before the man could recover, Ryan twisted the chain around his wrist and delivered a crushing elbow to his face. The biker staggered back, dazed. Keanu moved like a ghost, dodging an incoming punch with surgical precision. A large, broad-shouldered biker swung at him wildly, but Keanu sidestepped, catching the man's arm in midair. He twisted it sharply, forcing the biker down to one knee before delivering a calculated palm strike to his chest, knocking him flat onto his back. Another attacker came at Ryan from behind, attempting to tackle him. Ryan felt it before it happened. He shifted his weight at the last second, using the biker's own momentum to flip him over his shoulder. The man hit the pavement hard, groaning in pain. The leader, Vince, watched in growing frustration. His men were getting dismantled again. With a growl, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a knife, the blade gleaming under the Texas sun. Keanu's gaze flickered to the weapon, his body shifting slightly. He had spent years training for John Wick, countless hours of mastering disarms, learning how to neutralize threats with calculated efficiency. Vince lunged. Keanu moved first. With an almost lazy ease, he sidestepped, grabbing Vince's wrist mid-thrust. His fingers locked around the pressure points, forcing the biker's grip to weaken. With a sharp twist, the knife clattered to the ground. Before Vince could react, Keanu delivered a swift knee to his ribs, sending him stumbling backward. Ryan, meanwhile, was already dealing with another biker. A wiry man with a snake tattoo pulled a baseball bat from his bike, swinging it wildly. Ryan dodged, caught the bat mid-swing, and yanked it out of the biker's hands. With a fluid motion, he flipped it around and drove the handle into the man's stomach. The biker collapsed, coughing. The last two men hesitated now, exchanging nervous glances. Their confidence was cracking. Keanu adjusted his stance, rolling his shoulders. His voice was low, controlled. "Walk away." Vince, still gasping for air, looked up at him, his face twisted in rage. "You think this is over?" he spat. Keanu didn't flinch. "It is." Ryan cracked his knuckles. "Unless you want another round." Vince hesitated. His ego screamed at him to fight, but his body, bruised, beaten, exhausted, told him otherwise. He glanced at his men, all of whom were barely able to stand. With a sharp exhale, he made his decision. "Get on your bikes." The remaining bikers didn't hesitate. One by one, they scrambled to their feet, limping toward their motorcycles. The engines roared to life once more. Vince turned back one last time, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might snap. His eyes burned with resentment as they locked onto Maya. "This ain't over, kid." Maya, despite everything, held her ground. She lifted her chin, her voice unwavering. "Yeah, it is." A flicker of something passed through Vince's eyes, maybe anger, maybe respect, but he said nothing more. With a final rev of his engine, he and his crew sped off down the road, disappearing into the distance. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Keanu turned to her, his expression softening. "You okay?" She nodded, gripping the counter. "Yeah. I think so." Ryan glanced around at the mess, exhaling. "Well, that took a beating." Maya looked at her ruined stand, but instead of disappointment, there was something else in her eyes, determination. "I can rebuild it." Keanu gave a small smile. "Good." Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out another small stack of bills, setting them on the counter. "Use this to fix it up." Maya hesitated before taking the money carefully. "You've already done so much." Keanu shook his head. "Consider it a business investment." Ryan grinned. "And remember what we said, pay it forward." She nodded firmly. "I will." Keanu glanced down the street one last time, ensuring the bikers were truly gone. The neighborhood had settled again, as if the fight had never happened. Ryan stretched, rolling his shoulders. "All right, we should get moving." Keanu nodded but looked back at Maya. "You're stronger than you think." She smiled, the fear from earlier replaced with something else, conviction. Ryan gave her a small salute. "See you around, kid." With that, they turned and jogged down the street. Maya watched them go, gripping the money tightly. She had started the day thinking she was just selling lemonade. But now, she knew better. This wasn't just about making money. It was about standing up for what was hers. And thanks to two unexpected allies, she knew that she could. The sound of the motorcycles had finally faded into the distance, leaving only the faint rustling of leaves and the quiet hum of suburban life returning to normal. Maya stood behind what remained of her lemonade stand, gripping the wooden counter as if it were the only thing keeping her steady. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven breaths, but she didn't look scared anymore. Instead, there was something else in her eyes, determination. Keanu Reeves and Ryan Carter stood nearby, their breathing calm and steady despite the chaos that had just unfolded. Neither of them looked rattled. Neither of them looked shaken. They had moved with a precision and force that made it clear they were more than just actors. They had been trained, conditioned for moments like this, and it showed in every movement, in every counterattack, in every perfectly timed strike. Ryan rolled his shoulders, wiping his hands against his shirt. Well, that settles that. Keanu exhaled through his nose, his gaze still locked in the direction the bikers had disappeared. But he wasn't so sure. Ryan smirked. What? You think they're stupid enough to come back again? Keanu didn't answer right away. He thought about Vince, the bull marshal, the look in his eyes before he left, the way his jaw clenched, the anger burning just beneath the surface. He had seen men like that before. Men who let their pride and wounded egos drive them past the point of reason. I don't think they're done, Keanu finally said. Ryan let out a short laugh, shaking his head. Then they really don't learn. Maya finally found her voice, looking between the two of them. They can't come back, right? Keanu met her gaze, his expression steady. Not today. She swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the counter tighter. She wasn't trembling anymore, but the adrenaline was still in her system, keeping her alert, keeping her on edge. Ryan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, kid, they just got their asses handed to them, twice. If they're smart, they'll cut their losses and move on. Maya hesitated, as if trying to decide whether she believed that or not. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small stack of bills, placing them gently on the counter. Use this to fix up your stand. Her eyes widened slightly, but he gave her a small nod. It's not charity. Call it a business investment. Ryan smirked, crossing his arms. Yeah. And we expect a discount next time we stop by. Maya let out a soft laugh, finally relaxing just a little. She looked down at the money, then back up at them, her eyes filled with something other than fear now, gratitude. Respect. I don't know what to say. Keanu gave her a reassuring nod. Just keep doing what you're doing. Ryan tapped the counter lightly. And remember what we said, when it's your turn to help someone, pay it forward. She nodded firmly. I will. Keanu glanced down the street again, scanning for any lingering threats. The neighborhood had returned to its usual calm, as if the fight had never happened. A few distant neighbors peeked through their blinds, having clearly heard the commotion but unwilling to intervene. It wasn't surprising. People rarely got involved in situations like this. Not when danger was involved. Ryan stretched, adjusting his stance. All right, we should get going before we end up in another round of this mess. Keanu smirked slightly. You getting tired? Ryan scoffed. Please. I could do this all day. Maya watched as they started to turn away, her grip tightening on the counter. Wait. They both stopped, turning back toward her. She hesitated for only a second before speaking. I just wanted to say thank you. Not just for the money, but for standing up for me. Keanu gave her a small nod. It was the right thing to do. Ryan winked. Besides, we couldn't let those guys ruin your business. You've got a real empire in the making here. She smiled at that, her confidence slowly returning. Next time you stop by, lemonade's on the house. Keanu chuckled. We'll hold you to that. Ryan tilted his head toward the road. Come on. Let's get moving. As they jogged away, Maya watched them go, the weight of everything that had happened settling into her mind. She had started this lemonade stand with a simple goal. But today had changed everything. She had faced real danger. She had stood her ground. And she had found unexpected allies who had reminded her of something important. She wasn't just saving for college. She was building a future. And one day, she would make sure to pass that same kindness forward. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the quiet streets. The echoes of what had happened earlier still lingered in Maya's mind, but something had changed inside her. She wasn't just a kid selling lemonade anymore. She had stood her ground, faced real danger, and learned that strength wasn't just about fighting, it was about believing in yourself, no matter what. She glanced down at the money Keanu had left her. It was more than just paper. It was a symbol of something greater. An investment. A lesson. A challenge. She carefully tucked the bills away, already thinking about how she would rebuild her stand, stronger, better. But it wasn't just about her anymore. Keanu's words echoed in her mind. When it's your turn to help someone, pay it forward. She didn't know when that moment would come, but she knew one thing for sure, when it did, she wouldn't hesitate. Because kindness had a way of rippling outward, reaching places you never expected. Someday, someone else would need a chance. A little help. A reason to believe in themselves. And when that day came, Maya would be ready. She picked up a fresh cup, filled it with lemonade, and raised it slightly toward the street where Keanu and Ryan had disappeared. A silent toast. A promise. Then, with a deep breath and a determined smile, she turned back to her stand. She had work to do.